Welcome. We shall continue our study of Karma Yoga. In fact, we are going to encounter two key shlokas, which are which clarify the principles behind Karma Yoga. And I shall begin with completing some of the teaching that I had bravely tried to start, but of course, time ran out. So I shall briefly go over three shlokas first that I could not complete last time. Without further ado, let us begin this and use this wonderful time, but knowing that Ishvara in myriad forms and in the form of the truth that shines in every particle of our being and this entire pure existence is really supporting the evolution of our consciousness and is facilitating the study of a very noble scripture that is telling us how to live and live without sorrow, how to not create sorrow for ourselves, which is a choice where we have choice, let's not create more sorrow, and where we don't have choice, how to accept it so that we can be tranquil and poised through that. So let us remember Narayana. Narayana Samarama Vyasa Shankara Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Parthaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayena Swayam Vyasena Gathitam Purana Muninam Mathe Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshaniim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayanim Amba Tvamanusandadhami Bhagavata Bhavatveshanim. Shri Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Every word of this opening shloka is so wonderful because it feels like life is a Mahabharata. It's a war. Every moment we are faced with choices, and even if the choices are clear, sometimes the war is going on inside us, sometimes outside us. It's so uneasy to be without knowledge. And that Lord gives this knowledge to Arjuna in all of us in the middle of dire situations is really great. And I'm very pleased to know and note that all of you are taking something from these teachings that is relevant to you. And that is wonderful. So we shall continue with the shlokas that I was teaching, which is Shloka 42, 43, 44. And quickly I shall chant them. What is quickly, I don't know, but I shall chant them. Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipaschitaha vedavad ratah partha Nanyadasti vadinaha kamatmana swargaparaha janma karma phala pradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogaishwarya gatim prati bhogaishwarya prasaktanam tayapahita chetasam vyavasyayatmika buddhihi samadhavana vidhiyate. In the last class, we had decided that we don't want to be karmis who are, all over the place trying to, use spiritual tools for material security, material pleasures only. We want to be karma yogis, so we want to understand the deeper context of dharma and moksha. And there were many things that I've already explained in this one long paragraph, sort of broken up into 3 shlokas. But it's, I had talked about how there is avipaschita. These are somewhat non-strategic people, because it's a state of mind, and it's a state of mind that we've been there, and our education, our profession, our society, our current cultural narrative is really wanting to confirm that for us, that material accomplishment is what makes you somebody. And if you don't have material accomplishment by certain age, from certain institutions, by certain, universally accepted standards, then you're not good enough. And so, but that's an erroneous conviction. But some people get so filled with it that they spend their entire life not only making it happen, but then pretty much never questioning when is enough or have I arrived. It just becomes an addictive, conditioned pattern that they keep following. So that only material accomplishments make me whole or make me who I am, and in case I don't have them, I'm a nobody. These kind of thoughts, they are known as aviveki. One doesn't have discernment. One is not clear. And, and I talked about that. Then I had talked about Vedavatarata, this word in which Lord talks about yes, there are rituals, yes, there are beautiful mantras and homas prescribed in the Vedas, but also with a philosophical context. But he talks about those of us who ignore the philosophical, ecological, spiritual, expansive consciousness, elevating context, and only use those rituals in a very narrow, focused mind. That has, you see, why is he criticizing it? The way he's criticizing it is because, not that he has anything against somebody using a ritual to fulfill their gaps. But if they walk away with lesser knowledge that, yes, there is some rituals that can help you, because every karma you plant will have a seed, which will then give you a fruit. But if the translators of the Vedas only give the ritual and they don't give the fuller knowledge, then actually, if we are on the receiving end of that, we were just given a few crumbs from the Veda. We were not really given the treasure to cultivate satisfaction, contentment, inner fullness, and to enjoy the magic of how the God is not just outside in the heavens, but inside us too. So it's a very distorted view and usage of the Vedas. That was not the point, So that is why Vedavadarata, these are the and please remember that it is Vyasacharya himself who compiled the Veda, and it is Vyasacharya himself who authored the Bhagavad Gita. So it's not like in his one text, he's criticizing the other source text. He's criticizing our consciousness, and probably the consciousness, even when this was taught, had already reached a place where the Vedas were not had fallen into probably more materialistic interpretations of their grand, lofty invitations. That is, and the whole Karma Yoga Kand, or this whole Karma Yoga section, begins with who is not a karma yogi. And that's really important, because you might think, well, doing a homa is a karma, or doing a japa is a karma. So, and it's a spiritual karma, so I'm good. But while they have so many benefits, and I teach them myself, and Baba taught them to me, and there is a huge parampara around these Upasana yoga practices, but Upasana yoga was again never taught without the greater philosophy of Jnana and Karma yoga. So they are not exactly the same. Karma yoga is a kind of a worshipping attitude through your attitudes and through your actions, which are more sattvic, and not just through a japa mala to, fulfill your gaps. So it's not completely evil to fulfill your gaps, but when a teacher teaches, a teacher likes to create lists, what it is not, what it is. And that is how Lord is teaching. It's a very clear curriculum. So then he talks about another word he uses is Nanya Dastiti Vadina. So these are people in all walks of life who are, if you talk to them about spirituality, they're not really interested. They don't really want to talk about nobler things, about dharma, about Atman, Brahman. They're like restless. They want to come to a quick resolution and a quick fix to whatever they are dealing with. And they are often Nane Dastiti Vadina. Most people are also happy if I can, based on the Indian culture, and then you may have your own ways of doing it, but if I can please Mother Lakshmi and I can be abundant, that's good to go. If I can please Lord Ganesh and remove all my obstacles in my current work, I'm good to go. And then I eat and drink and I'm happy, and I raise my family, and I go watch Sunday night. I watch, Monday night football, and life is all good. But Lord is saying that unfortunately, these people's little bubble does get burst very often, because life needs a strategy, and that is what Karma Yoga is about. And these people are also doing their so-called karmas. I do this, I go to work, I buy a wonderful sofa, then I change the sofa, make it more comfortable, I do this, I do that. But he calls them pramuda, which means they have an intellect, but they're not really using it to question that, will changing my sofa make me happy? Will, just quickly lighting an incense to this Devi, that deity is going to make me happy. So he wants to, but in a way, when Lord is saying that, the Lord is saying that, it's basically the Upanishads are saying that wake up, if this, I also light incense, you also light incense, I'm sure. So when that incense is followed by, may my whole consciousness become incense, so that as the sorrows are burning me, may I be fragrant through it. Then it has a meaning. But if we are just lighting an incense, then it is just mechanical, probably. I've already mentioned what is kamatmana. We are too full of desires, and we talked about sarvapara. We always want, the better experience. And, it's like vasanas lead us on. Then he talks about another word in the 42nd verse, first line. It says pravadanti. So pravadanti is referring to the very selfish, very egocentric, not very brilliant people who are spreading the philosophy of materialism in the world. They are saying, she's not talking just about people, the Vedic people who are confusing, the so-called Vedic people who are telling the world about the Vedas, but now he's talking about the general atmosphere. And I would say currently in Kali Yuga, that is, most people have the pravadanti attitude, where they are only talking about, look, don't waste your time, studying spiritual books and going to Gita classes. And if you were doing MBA part-time, you would make so much money on Thursday nights. I remember I used to share this joke many times, that I met some cousins from my maternal side. I had not met them maybe 30 years, and they heard what I do. It's very nice, very nice, very good, very good. And then one of them said, "That's so surprising. You're still doing what your great grandfather and great great grandfather were doing all the way in America, you know. You could have at least done an MBA and made us proud, you know." So, so I just, so very materialistic thinking. Materialistic thinking means what is material, what is worldly, what I can measure, what I can judge, what I can confirm. That alone is the only way, to do things. So that's, one way. And so these people, if so, Lord says that if you spend time with them, because the forces of Maya or confusion are more, uh, they are more dominant than the forces of self or Atman in this universe. So you have to find a teacher, you have to systematically study the Gita, etc., to remember who you are. So, what happens is you quickly forget your way. So he wants to point out that these people will tell you that your karmas are only material, and you should not spend that half hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours you spend in a week in your own spiritual quest. Because, so they spread their philosophy kind of unasked, and just like when you're going through, the roads, you see all these banners. They're kind of in your face telling what butter you should eat, what clothes you should wear, etc. So they kind of pravadantis, the people pravadanti, they're just telling you. So you meet them everywhere, So Shastra warns that we avoid friendship with these people in general, or we don't avoid them, but at least we should be careful, you can say. When you say avoid friendship, it's like, be careful, when you meet with them, because it says that, initially the fish thinks that I'll just go and just carefully nibble at the bait, but the bait catches the fish. So what happens is our mind gets very colored, and it becomes very, it gets very dissatisfied. I remember telling some students many years ago about two women who I had met outside Vedika, and I thought, oh, we could be friends. No, I didn't think we could be friends, and it was not such an elaborate thought. But one of them said, "It was nice meeting you. Would you meet us for lunch?" And so we had a nice experience at the lunch. And then a month or two later, another one said, "I'd like to host a lunch." So, okay, I'll come along. And it was fun. But the second time, everybody became more comfortable, and the women just talked and talked about how dissatisfied they were with pretty much everything, which is the normal way samsari people talk, and how they want this and how they want that. And they were dissatisfied with their men, they were dissatisfied with their jobs, they were dissatisfied with their looks, they were dissatisfied with their house, they were dissatisfied with how much money they make, they were dissatisfied with their, I don't remember now their stories, it was too long ago. So then I looked at them, and when I came back home, I felt a little bit dissatisfied. But because I'm a teacher, and I mean, I was not a teacher back then, but because I was a student of my Baba, I immediately saw that this dissatisfaction was not mine. So that's another law that I have taught many times, that thoughts they infect each other, because there is whenever, for example, however number of people we are right now, our collective minds is called samashti, and our individual mind is called vayashti. So if you are not careful, you will get influenced by the collective mind. And I had kind of walked in with my probably barrier, what is it called? I was not so alert. And also, it was kind of the beginning period living here in this country. And I did not know that it's very trendy to talk about your dissatisfaction all the time. And but it is, apparently. And so I just didn't meet with them again. I declined any further invitation. So that was the end of any friends I've ever had, so to say. 2 lunches, and that's about it. So you have to watch out for pravadanti attitude, And then he says, and then says, and these pravadanti people have pushpitam vacham pravadanti. So their speech is very flowery, very attractive, very tempting. And so they might even, seduce us into some, some package which is going to give us worldly and spiritual sukha. So the Gita is talking about that. And then he says, and what we don't understand because we are innocent, and what do we want? We want sorrow relief. What do we want? We want stress relief. What do we want? We want to feel whole. What do we want? We want to not have gaps. And that's all legitimate, and he will teach us how to have that. But in the meantime, we fall for these pravadanti, pushpitam vacham, and their flowery speech. And so, one person may say, let's go to a, I'm going to do extreme examples. Let's go to a, let's go where we can smoke, a joint. Let us go that will make us feel stress free. Somebody can say, let us go where we can have some such things which are ultimately detrimental to us. Okay. So then, but it's very flowery, it's very convincing. And I have met so many people when I was a counselor, when I used to actually counsel people in their well-being, of people who are just like naive. They were really broken, they were really wounded, and they walked into, unsafe situations in their life, and they became, they became more unhappy as a result. But initially it sounded like, okay, this sounds perfect. And so, and I'm not talking about one person seducing us. We're talking about, this is a consciousness that there is out there since the time Gita was composed till today. So it must have only increased all this like PR around, come hither, we shall solve your problems. But then it's not clear, and we get caught up in, then he later says, spending a lot of money, probably, investing in a lot of expensive solutions. For us, it could be like, okay, this 10 days in the spa will sort out all your problems. I'm just giving an example. I mean, I have never been to a spa, and if I get invited to one, I'll be happy to go to one. But I won't go to it thinking it's going to solve all my problems. That's all we want to know. We don't want to live outside the world, but we just want to know that everything that is shining is not gold. I think that is what, in essence, he is saying. So, and ultimately, when we get caught up in this, pushpita, flowery, pushpa means flowers, vacha means vak, speech, which is, when we get caught up, what happens? What is the problem that happens? Janma karma phala pradam. What happens is that we perform unconscious karmas. We get very absorbed in our happiness. We perform unexamined karmas, which we may not have performed if we had a teacher saying, think, or if we had a wisdom that makes us breathe before we, at least breathe 10 times before we move forward. If we had that kind of wisdom, or it had taught us how to wait till we can respond, not from rajas, not from tamas, but from sattva, then what would happen is that we would be fine. But because we are kind of just in a greed, we move towards these karmas. And what do karmas do? We have discussed in the past, karmas bind up into experiencing jan karma phalam, the fruit of karma. And because of that, we have to take another birth, and then another birth. So in a sense, the karmis get caught up. They want happiness. They deserve happiness. They want it. But because of all this is going on, we get caught up into what are called traps. These are materialistic, and these are not necessarily going to be the resolutions for what you need. So you want to, and we can be so grateful that before he gives the highest philosophy, again, Lord comes in a very worldly level and talks to us at a very worldly level, like an uncle would tell us that, look, everything that shines is not gold. And it's so important, because if a teacher only tells what is great and perfect, only sets the ideal for us, but doesn't tell us what not to do, then everything may look the same, because a flowery speech person may actually be more flowery speech than your teacher. I have been known to have a strong speech. You know, it's, I don't know if I'm strong speech, but it doesn't, necessarily be flowery. How can I tempt you into what I'm teaching? It's the ultimate teachings of how to not be sorrowful. So we need to have an adult conversation here. So I can't be just, seducing you. And you have to be, each one of you is probably willing to look at this. But unfortunately, sorrow occurs if you are not available. So that's why I talked about Ayurveda's Patya, Apatya. The discussion was between, if you have short time to give a diet, is it important to give what to eat, which is good for you, or what not to eat, which is bad for you, causing the disease? And between the two, what not to eat is more important. Similarly, what not to do is very important, because at least that cuts the sorrow of future sorrows, or immediately more karmic chains right away. So, and and then what do we do? What do we get involved in? Another word that's important here is Kriya Vishesha Bahulam. So earlier, these Pravadanti people, they make us get caught up in so many activities, variety of activities. And I mentioned that last time, from going to the spa to spending a lot of money in, spiritual, religious rituals, or, or taking classes or workshops, or I don't know what examples to give you, or expensive cosmetics, or, I don't know, all those, you people use your imagination, okay? Where it feels like the El Dorado is there, the Swarga is there, right? They tempt with Swarga. So Swarga doesn't mean the heaven as mentioned in our religious scriptures of various religions, but the heavenly experience that is mentioned may or may not come to you, is what I want to say to you, okay? So, so that is all. And with this, I complete this part. And oh, I didn't complete it. There's another word here called Bhogaishwarya Prasaktanam. And this means that they not only promote, they fan our desires for artha, wealth and love and romance and sexuality and pleasures and kama, artha kama, but they are themselves completely attached to artha kama, So it's, it's a mentality, and because of that, Taya prihata chetasam. And what happens with artha kama, if you don't have dharma moksha kind of sandwiching it, dharma means ethics, like how much is enough? Am I being sattvic in the process? Am I hurting anybody in the process? We talked about the three actions, rajas, tamas, and sattva. So dharma means always embodying sattva through upholding values, and moksha means making sure you don't get addicted anywhere, making sure you don't get emotionally dependent anywhere, making sure you remain sovereign in your inner being. So, you enjoy everything. You can go to um, a very sensorially attractive experience, if that's what you want to have, but you want to come out of it free. And that is what is important. That's moksha. So, but when you're only thinking artha kama, artha kama, artha kama, artha kama, which is what happens, nowadays in the corporate world, in our overall society. Why blame only the corporate world? Everywhere, even medical profession, artha kama, artha kama, artha kama. I have relatives who are medical doctors, and one of them works in emergency medicine in India. I'm sorry, I don't know if this happens here, but it happens in India, that a person may die So the body is dead, but they know that this person has rich relatives. So they say, so they will keep the person for 20 more days on heart-lung machine just to bill them. And this is very common, you know. So it's a very unfortunate example that I'm giving you. But so we used to uphold the medical profession. And I'm quoting you something that happens in, of all places, in India, the giver of Gita and Dharma. Why? Because not many people, how many people are listening right now to this word by word explanation of the wisdom? How many? You know, and how many people are following the spiritual teachings where you can get a package which promises that you shall be more abundant quickly, that you shall be more wealthy quickly, you know. So this, obviously, the warnings have not been heeded. So, so unfortunately, whether you're from India or wherever, Artha Kama consciousness alone has taken over our humanity, you know. So then he says, Taya pahata chetasam, then gradually when these desires are not met by legitimate needs, one can even develop desires in exponential ways, and one may not even hesitate to become excessively selfish, rajasic, or even criminal minded, you know, tamasic in the process, like hurt others in the process. And this is only something that this is not just the path of others doing it, but this whole 3 shlokas are about the presence of people who have the Vedas, probably, or they have those mantras, or they have memorized the mantras, but they are not teaching the full philosophy. And then it talks about our own consciousness, because we are karmis and artha kama desirous, so we get attracted to them and we don't think about it. Then we do so many activities, and ultimately our own consciousness degenerates, because from legitimate to illegitimate consciousness, and you know, our sense of conscience and our inner voice, etc., gets suppressed, and we get befuddled between our sense of honesty or our sense of justice. You know, it just all goes away. You know, so where in societies where artha kama is very, 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 very important, in those countries there will be bribing, there will be, you know, corruption, there will be, you know, everybody will be, you know, out to get every other person. So this, all of this, and all of it is done for what? For happiness. All of this is done for what? For even for spiritual advancement, people do that. So you pay this much, so you get this close to the deity. In India, if you pay this much, you stand in this line. If you pay this much, you stand in the VIP line. If you pay this much, you have 15 seconds more with a certain deity, you know, in front of them. So it's all business. You know, that is why I don't feel like taking so many of you to the pilgrimage of India. Because it's all become full of this karmis everywhere currently. But everything is in a cycle. India was once the leader in Satyuga, and its consciousness has fallen. It has been taken over by Artha Kama. Of course, there are great dharmic leaders and moksha livers there also, to look for them. But general atmosphere is like that. And if you look anywhere, you shall find things where, for example, unnecessary wars, unnecessary weapons being made, unnecessary, you know, we need climate policies, but there are equal number of people, not just the one person we all want to blame, but that person has been elected by a lot of people who are similarly, you know, in that consciousness that we want to get ahead. So all this is just karma. It is unconscious. It is based on just rajas, tamas, and a desire for happiness at any cost. In the process, we choose material solutions to make us happy. We choose spiritual solutions to make us happy, but we don't get ahead. And all of this does not give us the vyavasyatmika buddhi, or the very clear buddhi between what is my means, what is my end, where am I going, you know, that it gets very befuddled, and we get confused. So Krishna has, what is it called? Isn't it called, to be forewarned is to be Well, I don't know, but if you're warned earlier, then you can make preparation and be more alert in the future. Then you won't be, caught up by the flowery speeches, and you shall have very clear wisdom from the Gita to guide you. Now we are going into some beautiful, very deep teachings. Now that he's done with the more worldly teachings and warnings to give us, now he starts giving us. Some principles, etc., which are very valuable. Of course, the whole chapter 3 is on karma yoga, so this is only touching upon it. So if you hang in there, you will really know karma yoga so well. You will become a karma yogi. That is the beauty of these shlokas. And I love how the teacher kind of in chapter 2 kind of gives a summary of all the yogas, Dhyan yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, even some dharma teachings. And then there are more chapters to detail everything. So now let us go to shloka number 45. Trigunya Vishaya Vedaha Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nidvando Nitya Sattvastaha Niyogakshema Atmavan. So in this he is making a couple of statements. So for example, when he says when he's saying that, O Arjuna, Vedaha Traigunya Vishayaha. When he says this, because in Sanskrit you can put any word before any word, then the Vedas, he's saying the Vedas deal with the world made up of the three gunas. So sattva, rajas, tamas are not just actions, but they compose all the vishaya, all the objects of the world. They have, so sattva, rajas, tamas co-inhabit together. So for example, in the scriptures, you will find maximum sattva and minimum rajas, tamas. And in something foul smelling, you shall find maximum tamas. In something highly moving, you shall find maximum rajas. And I use the scriptures because whenever you spend some time with the scripture, then your inner light and inner balance increases. So as a result, the words and the teachings contain sattva. So everything has they're all coming mixed. In the world, nothing is 100% sattva, 100% rajas, 100% tamas. Okay. So, and why they are all three together, what is what, you need to go back to the library, intranet, and look up my classes, just three gunas and Ayurvedic psychology, etc., where I explain these things. So he's clarifying that the Vedas deal with the world of three gunas. So then he says, Bhava Nistray Gunyo. He says, Bhava Nistray Gunyo means you should be free from the desires of the world of these three gunas, which means you want to live in this world, but you don't want to possess the world of these three gunas. So you want to enjoy it. Okay, basically that's what he's saying. Try not to be trying to possess it. So like say you go to somebody's house for dinner, right? And they have a beautiful home. Okay, they have beautiful paintings, beautiful art, beautiful sculpture. What do? You enjoy it, then you come back to your home. You don't even feel the need to possess it. But if you go there and you feel the need to possess it, then you will be a very restless guest. You might even come back with some cutlery in your pocket. It may not be a good idea. So the point is, try to be free from the desire for the world. It's a very big teaching which we will clarify later. And then he says, then the next thing he says, Nirdandaha, and be free from the hold of the pairs of opposites in this world of three gunas, because the gunas are always changing. Sometimes rajas is more, sometimes rajas tamas is more, sometimes sattva is more. So always there is never one experience. There is always opposites coming at us. What is that? This is a law. So if victory and defeat, some darkness will be there, then some light. If there is some light, you're feeling light, it might pull in some more darkness in your mind to look at. Then after you looked at the darkness, some light will come in. Some fame will be there. After some time, some disfame will be also there, because that is the nature of it. So he says, you also have to be free. So it's a very big statement that where we are heading. You want to, when we understand that pairs of opposites hang out together, okay, then you can be free of them. What does it mean, free of them? Means you can be free of complaining about them. Suppose you have a child, and the child has a buddy who uh, who who always stays with your child, through kindergarten, grade 3, grade 4, they always come together, okay? So they always play together. So once you know they are together, then you can accept them. Okay, this they come together. Okay. Or if there is a couple, maybe not child, I should give the example of a couple. Suppose you like one part of the couple, you like the one partner, you don't like the other partner, but you should know they are a couple. So if you are going to invite one, sooner or later the other will also show up. Surprise, we are both here. Why? Because that's how it is. So be free from the hold that the pair of opposites has, because we spend a lot of time controlling our immediate environment by saying, I want this, but not that. I want this, but not that. Excuse me, can I have that, more of it, not that. And this is where we are just screaming in the face of reality. What we don't understand is that if we accept the joy happily, when the sorrow comes along, if we accept it too, it will change into joy. But we get so caught up when the difficulty comes, when the opposite that we don't want comes, that we just get stuck there. So he's saying, be free of the hold, the pathological hold of the pair of opposites on your consciousness. Then he says, and I'm just giving you line by line breakup. Then he says, because it's such an important shloka, then he says, Nitya Sattvastha, which means, and what do you do if you're going to be how to face those opposites? After all, it's not pleasant to face the opposites. Everybody likes fame, nobody likes disfame. Everybody likes approval, nobody likes disapproval. Everybody likes, to be liked, nobody likes to be disliked. Everybody wants to be popular, nobody wants to be unpopular. But he says, how? By being ever established in Sattva-guna. Keep cultivating Sattva-guna, because Sattva-guna, it gives you balance. And through that balance, you will become more steady and composed, even when that other piece needs to pass through. Okay? And we do that, when it's very pleasant weather. Then it starts raining and it's thunder. So we don't get so upset. We say, okay, let's wait it out. It shall pass. Don't we say that? We say that. Because deep inside we know that nothing stays. We know that. But when the pair of opposites come in our life, and depending on our individual karma, the season of rain may last a little longer or shorter. But we may make it even longer by our resistance to it. That's the issue. So therefore, we should cultivate Sattva-guna, so that means only through Sattva-guna can we step into observer consciousness, we can feel more balance, we can feel the inner, we can feel closeness to our soul, so we can get some intuitive guidance. So between the three gunas, you want to cultivate more Sattva. And, we have teachings on how to cultivate Sattva, we have teachings on how to be a Sattva farmer, and the Gita will graduate you into Sattva-guna. So don't you worry about it if you're starting new, because you will work out with a couple of things very clear, like how to be a karma yogi, what is sattva, how does a sattvic person think, how do they behave, how do they relate. So everything is coming up for you. And then he says nir yogakshemaha. So in this word there is nir means be free, and yogakshemaha means there are two words in it, yoga and kshemaha. Yoga means, in this case, here the word yoga means, and be free from this constant compulsive, concern for yoga here would mean acquisition. Yoga means union. So here we are using it more in a materialistic sense. That's why you need a teacher, because if you just say, be free from yoga, what are they saying? So you have to understand the context, because there are many Sanskrit words which change their meaning based on the context. So here yoga means a union with what? With material objects. So you are spending a lot of the time in acquisition, and then more time once you have acquired it in its preservation. So, and then he says the last word he uses is Atmavan. The word is be mindful. So there's a lot of teaching right here. So he's in short, oh Arjuna, the Vedas, they deal with the world of three gunas. So first of all, what does it mean? The world is going to be changing a lot. Be free from the desire for the world of three gunas. So don't get so caught up in trying to control it, manage it, perfect it, own it, Be free also while you're being free with things, be free of these experiences. Know this is the lay of the land. This is what's happening. And do that by being established in Sattva Guna. You can acquire, you can preserve things, but you can't be like a control freak during the process. In Vedika also try to acquire a whole Ayurvedic collegiate program. We also try to preserve it, then we let it go. And we didn't lose our sanity in the process. Why? Because we were mindful. That's the last word. Atman, be mindful of what? Be mindful that, this is, going to be a slippery slope for you. So, what? Now let me explain this shloka some more. Okay. Probably I'll stop and then take your questions here because it's an important shloka. So when he says that this world is made of three gunas and be free from the desire of the world, what is he saying? He's saying probably that you should not be, in the oral tradition we explained to you that there are two kinds of desires. Spiritual desires and material desires. So don't be overwhelmed with material desires. But if you're overwhelmed with spiritual desires, it's okay. Because spiritual desires acquaint you to you. So that's fine. But if you are overwhelmed with material desires, you will be like the karmis and there will be no end to it. So, the difference between how we would karma yoga would like you to enjoy artha kama is that it's not just artha kama, there is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So you're a complete personality. So if you're always practicing moksha every moment in your every relationship, every engagement, remembering that I'm always an independent being, and that's why Jnana Yoga was taught earlier to you. If you keep remembering I'm self, I am anything else later. I'm an employee later. I'm a gardener later. I'm a painter later. But I am the pure self first, and this is just a story going on for my non-self, the body, mind, intellect. I am pure self, then you'll stay in the moksha bhava also. But otherwise, the more artha kama you will strengthen, the more artha kama, what it does is it makes you go into the world to fulfill yourself, and then you want to have more and more, and then basically possess it, So, the second advice was, I already mentioned to you, that deal with the dvanda. Dvanda means, dva means two. So deal with this bhava of the opposites coming your way, and Lord will teach you. He's not just saying, come on, deal with it with a stiff upper lip. He's keep giving us knowledge that this is happening, it shall pass. So you do it, you deal with it. Learn to accept some difficulties also in your life by strengthening your own mind. And there is a nirdvando bhava, which is the sakshi bhava or the observer state, where you can say, okay, this has come, this state, this experience came, then this left, and that left, and this came. So when you become more of an observer, that is known as the nirdvando bhava, or the bhava which transcends the pairs of opposite. So you can be more in an observer state, even in the world, when you are dealing with life. And so the Sakshi Bhava is not actually needed for, Atma Gnan, for self-realization. You need actually to be more of an observer when you are, in your daily life, in the worldly life, because if you stepped back from the situation that you were in, that was giving you, the opposite side of the experience that you wanted currently, you can step back, and only then when you step back, you see the entire gestalt, and then you can know that, okay, it's passing through, this is how it's changing, this is subtle, this is where I'm controlling it, this is where I can let go. And all this knowledge comes just from being an observer. But if you're an actor alone, then only the ego works. And remember, who's the observer, who is the sakshi? The self. And the self has what? The self has immediate knowledge. The ego has only local knowledge. So the way ego gets knowledge is, the way the ordinary mind intellect get knowledge is, whatever they focus on, they get that knowledge. But if you step back, you have stepped into the Sakshi Bhava, or the Nirdvando Bhava, in the Bhava of transcending the opposites. So if you start observing them more than just whining and talking and complaining about them, then what happens? Not you, means we all do that. Then when we do that, we step back a little bit, and the Sakshi Bhava, observer consciousness, comes up. Then what happens is the self immediately has more knowledge. It has complete knowledge. And you shall find that suddenly solutions that you were not thinking, ability to withstand, will show up. Not just solutions, but the ultimate solution is that it doesn't affect you. Then you don't need a solution. See, if something was bothering you, like if it was very hot, so then you need a fan. But if it's very hot and you don't feel it, then do you need a fan? You don't need a fan. So ultimately the Nridanda Bhava is that through understanding, you stop controlling it, and after a while it stops controlling you. That is what happens. So this is what we are trying to say in this. So in a way, in this shloka, he's putting a very large foundation for karma yoga, and you may feel like, whoa, this is so much, what is all this, pair of opposite, not be in the world, what are they trying to tell me? That, this sounds a lot like, don't be in the world. Is that what they're saying? Not at all. And if you don't get this shloka, you might get this after you've completed chapter 3. So you might want to mark it and then come back and see if this shloka, makes sense. Because sometimes when a professor in a university introduces a topic, it's like, oh man, what is this topic? But after a whole semester, that topic becomes really, helpful, and it becomes, a part of your repertoire. So that might happen. So he's putting the foundation down, you can say. Okay. So when he says that don't just follow karma yoga, but also bring in dharma moksha, probably what Gita is trying to tell us is that when you are in the world, when you are playing your roles, dear students, as you go about your professions, as you go about being spiritual students, anything, as your ego is going about, don't just get lost in your role. Keep remembering that there is a higher purpose to this whole existence, and for you being born or manifested or you are an avatar of Brahman in this body, a minor avatar. You may not be a Vishnu or a Brahma or a Shiva, but you are who you are, and you are an avatar of Brahma. We are all avatars of Brahman. That is what the Veda says. Some avatars got really, really famous, like Rama and Krishna, but we are also minor avatars. And we are minor because we are all, we doubt it. Once we don't doubt it, we also become undoubtable avatars. So, but we are all avatars. So, and what is not an avatar of Brahman from that perspective? The roses growing in my garden are avatars of Brahman. So, we are here for a very healthy inner growth, and karma yoga is about how you don't separate your spiritual life. But spiritual life is where I have inner growth, in satsang, in jnana yoga, in sadhana chatushtayam. How about if your daily life you could still do what you do and be in your world, but you still keep having the wealth of inner growth and keep cultivating sattva. That is the goal, because a sattva-filled mind will then become very ready for Jnana Yoga. And we talked about Karma Yoga being a preliminary teaching for Jnana Yoga. Now, so dharma will allow you to have an inward growth, because you will do inner correction. You will take, instead of blaming somebody else saying they started it, he did it, you said that, you will look at, okay, there's somebody is really like, misunderstanding me. So what is the dharma I can practice now? Vaktapas, straightforwardness, truthfulness, non-violence, compassion towards me, so that I can later have compassion for the other person. So now it's dharma teaches us these things, to have very mature thoughts. And moksha, and in the middle of a very difficult situation, your boss is telling you, you better finish this deadline by midnight, and your partner is calling you, you are ignoring me, you don't come home, your child is saying, dad, can you help me come and make my report? So you could be in the middle of so many problems, okay? And suddenly you think moksha. Wow, I'm spirit. All of this is happening. I have the soul. I am the soul. And later you can study. I've been teaching in other classes about soul power, but thoughts around who you are at the ultimate level relieve you. They don't, they may come for 1 minute, but they relieve you. Has anybody of had like a one moksha thought that kind of broke the paradigm of stress? Can any one of you raise your hand and tell me that? Yeah. So, moksha thoughts and dharma thoughts, or moksha consciousness and dharma consciousness, does not come right away, but that is what ultimately gives us the happiness, because there we were in the middle of stress, there we were in the middle of so much sorrow, and we could have just reacted with more artha kama. What would have been the more artha? I just cannot tell my boss I can go home because I lose my job, so I'm just all about my financial security, and I just cannot afford to lose the job, because then I cannot afford to lose my house, and I cannot afford to do that. So we get trapped in artha kama, you see. So, but dharma is like, yes, it's true, but dharma is also swadharma. Am I taking care of me? And moksha will say, I am one with the Lord. I'm going to take care of me. And then you'll go up with such confidence because of dharma. Come and tell the boss, look here, I'm going to bed, you can stay here and finish it. And you might find, Nidhi is laughing. Nidhi, welcome to the Kula. So you are, you don't realize that, because so karma yoga could give you a lot of power, but we stay trapped in being a karmi. That's what it is. So dharma gives us power. Dharma doesn't make us, weaklings. Moksha gives us the ultimate freedom, because we know our sovereignty lies, our value lies here. If I didn't have moksha purushartha, or moksha as a karma yogi, I didn't know about moksha, then I could have just been, my journey could not have progressed, because I mentioned in my relationships class how we give away our power, and you people have all done it ceremoniously at different times. Yes, everybody does it. Humanity does it. Now, it's very important that, we understand that dharma moksha are not making us weak. They are strengthening us. They are taking us close to happiness. Whereas artha kama alone are taking us to the hypnotized illusion of happiness. There's a difference. But once you have dharma kama, you can actually have happiness. And I can give you a small example that just now happened in my life. So I'm working on a book, and it's a rather large manuscript. And because I don't read many, spiritual books, contemporary ones, so I didn't realize that it's a bit too much, like the word limit is too much. And intensity is also too much, and the word limit is also too much. So anyway, so my literary agent came back to me, and fortunately she respects my word. So she said, no, we don't want to dumb it down. We leave it there, but you really have to, drop the word count. And it didn't sound like a pleasant email. So I sat with it because I never respond knee jerk. And then I got back to her and I said, look, you know, in the normal editing process, 10, 15,000 words may go. But I'm not going to cut any more than that, because she said it's not like a regular trade book. I said it cannot be a trade book because I will withdraw it from the market and self-publish it. Because I knew in my mind that, you know, the moksha dharma, what was the dharma purushartha behind me? I have to speak my truth. I can just follow the industry trade standard. I'm writing this ultimately for the students who dare to walk with me. And students walk behind their acharya. They walk behind me. So I owe this book to them. First and foremost, I owe it. I'm writing it for you. First and foremost, to any student who is sitting by me. Upanishad means sitting with your teacher. So I'm writing for you. So dharma was very clear. Satyam was clear. Dharma was clear. So moksha was, I'm fine. I don't need anybody. And she came back and said, yeah, no, we'll work with your deadline. We'll work with your word limit. You know, but she may not have come back with it. And I was willing to take that risk, because if you're only an Artha Kama person, then quickly you start changing your whole paradigm to meet the world. And in that, you lose your power, then you feel the resentment. And then when I come and sit with you, I know that I didn't write the book for you. Then when I say to you, I wrote it for you, I don't mean it. So then inside, my dharma spine shakes. So dharma and moksha are critical, and that is why Lord is saying, don't try to own the world with artha kama. Enjoy it with artha kama, dharma, moksha. Okay. He's nowhere, as he said, no artha kama, because artha kama is very important in the purushartha, but with dharma, moksha. So when this book gets published, it will support artha. It will support my kama, because I enjoyed writing it. It was a pleasure writing it. It will be a pleasure to see something, you know, published. It will be a pleasure for my student to have it. So there is a pleasure. It's a very egotistic pleasure to see, okay, what you started, finished. Although it doesn't last long, because I don't even pick up that other book now. It's like, yeah, it's there. But the point is, with a temporary few minutes, it's very pleasureful. Few weeks. Okay, it's a pleasure. But because there was dharma moksha, it doesn't move me into a slavery of artha kama. Okay, this is very important to know, you know, because even if I have to talk to engineers or doctors or, you know, professors or scientists, and I want to tell them that, you know, you can be very vigorously promoting artha, you know, pursuing artha kama in your life, but you should have a personal inner palette of dharma, and you should know who are you if all of this were to go away. Because then what happens is, if you just know this one thought, that I am enough, even if all of this was taken away from me, you don't even know how liberating it is. This is the thought that I think, that who am I if all of my current life as I know it was taken away? And it could be taken away, because the world of three gunas keeps changing. Today everything is stable. Tomorrow there can be an earthquake. You know, nature can change. Students' nature can change. You know, students may change their geographical position. I might change my geography, but life is so full of the gunas destabilizing everything. How can you control anything? So you should know it from a moksha perspective. I am always free of all of this. I am just enjoying this while it is lasting. Then that is good. It's a very good attitude to have, this clarity, you know. Then, but even if you reduce artha kama, still there is going to be the opposite experiences, you know, because of prarabdha karma. I talked about how some ups and downs will happen. And even if it's not your prarabdha karma, then the mass prarabdha karma of humanity, because of which volcanoes, earthquake, floods, etc. will keep happening. So something or the other will be changing, you know. So, you know, gain and loss, labha, alabha, jaya, apajaya, ajaya, victory, defeat, man, apamana, fame and disfame, all of these will come in their pairs, ups and downs of life. So we therefore want to really, really strengthen our dharma spine and our moksha understanding that I am free and my inner freedom depends on me. And in this, and I'm a soul, and that's why I'm free. So this is really the whole purpose. And so this is why these things are being taught, so that we can activate our inner mental attitudes before some problem strikes and just completely destroys us, we don't want problems, but they may come. So we can say to Lord when we pray to Ishvara, can you reduce some of my problems? But we should also say, and can you make me strong to face them mentally by giving me the right philosophy, the right thoughts to think, the right attitudes, the right detachment which moksha allows us to have, and the right maturity which dharma allows us to have, while I am in this world doing what? Pursuing artha kama. Isn't that what we all do? So we should do it. We have to do it, so we should do it. So, and then why should we do nitya sattva stha? Why should we cultivate sattva? Because among the three gunas in the mind, if we have a preponderance of sattva guna, then we will be able to do all the mental functions, especially the mental function of viveka vairagyam, discernment and detachment, very well. Discernment is the discernment of what are the choices I should make, what is real, what is appearing like real. Sometimes we believe a lot in certain beliefs and ideas, but all along they were just projections in our mind. They were just myth beliefs or false beliefs. So, but when you have sattva, you can see through the contents of your own mind, so you can shake it off. So when I was a more immature person, when my own gunas were fluctuating more, then I remember I used to say say my son behaved in a way that was, he screamed a lot as a child. Suppose he didn't actually, he was quiet, but say he screamed a lot. One day, then my mind would think, oh, he's such a screamer. Oh, he will grow up and become a screamer. Some such salt and pepper I can add, What will happen? This will happen. That will happen. And did I cause it? Did she cause it? Did he cause it? Is God against us? And the mind can become really fertile. Instead of saying, okay, the child is hungry, let me give him food. That was the reality. It's like that. So we build these cobwebs of imaginary thoughts. And if we have rajas and tamas, they love to feed it. With more rajas, like let's have more cobwebs. And tamas says, let's switch off the light. So we'll never know if it's cobweb or reality. But sattva alone switches on all the lights and says, cobweb, remove it. Cobweb, remove it. Reality, keep it. Cobweb, remove it. Otherwise, we're so confused. And so, and sattva, and then I've taught ways to cultivate sattva, such as by silence, by meditation, by healthy foods, and various things. And I've also taught how to cultivate vivek vairagyam so that you're making more sattvic choices, sattvic friends, sattvic conversation, so that sattva remains with you. So when sattva is with you, you will have better discernment, discriminative power, and you will make sure that along with your artha kama needs and vocation and enjoyment, you're also understanding the value. Right now, you're only being asked to understand principally why you want dharma and moksha in your life. So therefore, the awareness of dharma moksha in your daily life is what is nitya vastu viveka. That is what ultimately is the right kind of discernment in the beginning of our spiritual life, is because and another nitya nastu viveka, or another discernment that's really important, is that my spiritual growth is really important. I made it. I have a degree, I have a job, I did this, but I'm not going to keep repeating this every birth. I also, while I'm doing what I'm doing, I want to have more sattva guna, period. So this is really, really important, and I will do that by, reading, by reading the teachings that support me, the hearing them, going to satsang, meeting meeting with, in the circles with the peers to discuss, you know, yeah, chanting mantras, doing the Sandhya Vandam, chanting the Gayatri, whatever can help me, keeping my home clean, lighting a lamp, whatever it takes. I am going to go on cultivating my sattva, because my sattva guna then becomes my anchor in my own mind. That is what it is going to do for me. It is going to become my anchor, And probably I'll only be able to teach you this shloka. But there is a chant called Bhaj Govindam by Shankaracharya. And he talks about the value of satsang, ongoing satsang. And he says, Satsangatve nisangatvam, nisangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nischalatattvam, nischalatatve jivam mukti, bhaj govindam, bhaj govindam. So he says, what do I get from satsang? What do I get from satsang? What is the essence that I am getting from satsang, continued satsang, So he gets, the first step in the ladder is satsang. So, and only in the satsang do I understand that what I need to cultivate is nisangaha. I need to understand that I need company of good thoughts, because everywhere I go, I get the company of what? Unfulfilled desires, badly contained lust that's leaking out and, hurting others. My passions that are not only exciting me or making me creative, but somewhere making me frustrated and angry. So that's what's happening in the world of karmis and samsaris. So you can protect yourself a lot with sattva, etc., but then all these things keep coming to you and they're attacking your boundaries all the time. So he says, and sometimes they're so powerful that, I can go there and once I'm gone, and I have to come back and, and I may not come back. And so, and I suffer. So the company of, what is satsang? Satsang is a company of those thoughts that are teaching me that I am enough unto myself, and so satsang leads me to nisangatvam. It's a kind of a detachment. Earlier, I was so attached and fused with everything. I thought, this is it. Without this, I cannot live. Like my breath would stop in my chest, and I could feel some stress here. And, if this happened, that happened, well, what would I do? Many, many years ago, I used to think, okay, I lost my mother, then I lost my sister, and of course, I can't even talk about loss of Baba, and I can't even talk about it. But now my father should not go. I can't deal with it. Yes, I know about Nitya, but I can't deal with it. So it was I needed more satsang. No, probably only my mother had passed away, not my sister then. So probably I was 22, 23. So I was thinking like that. But now I can deal with it. Why? Because there is a detachment. And detachment is not coldness or indifference, but it is, in fact, attachment is what is clingy and confusing, because it's like you have slime all over you, so you can't really see. But if the slime is removed, the slime of attachments, then you realize that, and you realize that with the help of satsang, where everybody's talking about seeking the highest, then in this, so nisanga, is very important. This detachment is really important, because unless I separate, I can't even begin asking the question that, am I okay? Wow, this was not so bad after all. Well, this feels really nice and spacious here. I can think for myself. And after all, I'm not alone here, because there is God here. So this is the second step. Satsang leads to nisangatvam. It leads to a desire to detach from everything that was making you sleepwalk, everything that was making you a karmi, everything that was making you a arthakami, everything that was making you say, go for this, do that, and these were the scripts we inherited as a child. And I'll ask you now, in a few minutes I'll stop, how relieving it is not to have these compulsive scripts to be an arthikami, and you can actually think outside that script or think outside that box only if you detach a little bit. And whatever detachment you have achieved is because you have been in satsang. So the longer you are in satsang, the automatic fruit of that is nisangatvam. From what? From your sorrow causing attachments which made your mind lean on it, from your raga and your dvesha. And then from nisangha, that is when you become free of raga, too much love, too much craving, too much infatuation, and dvesha. When you don't get what you want, then hatred and anger and revenge. So you just become more neutral. Then it leads to, the shloka says, nirmoha tattvam. Tattvam means the step, and it leads to nirmoha. Because what our attachments were doing was they were putting in a state of moha. Moha means altered reality. There was once I had this altered reality that I cannot even breathe without my father. Now it's going to be very difficult, and I'll need you by me. At that time, I'll tell you that the daughter will come out more than the Acharya at that time. Still, I'm not in an altered reality where I shall, go into depression now. That's not what's going to happen. So once I had the moha in me was, an altered reality was that my relationships have to work out a certain way. Now that delusion is gone. Now whatever is, it should be dharma and moksha. It's all good to go. It's good to go. That the marriage may stay, marriage may go. My dharma moksha should be in place. That is what is more important. So what happened was, so you become nirmoha. Moha means delusion. Nirmoha becomes suddenly your cobweb. You don't have those cobwebs, and you can say, wait a minute. I had been giving so much importance to this topic, this subject, this battle, this revenge, this wound, this memory, this sorrow, and that was all happening in the ego. It's not even real. It doesn't even need so much time. That's an advanced thinking. It's like, wait, I am the self. Or you can say, it's not important. That's my spiritual journey is important. So it can take many forms. Nirmoha tattvam. So that happens. So from satsang nisangha, from nisangha nirmoha. So it's so beautiful. You become clear thinking, clear headed, as if somebody gave you what is it called? After you had a lot of alcohol, they give you what? Seltzer or something like that. Seltzer or something like that. So satsang is your Alka-Seltzer from your, it's your Alka-Seltzer from the mohas of the world. Okay. And then what does nirmoha lead to? It leads to nischala tattva. Nischala, I wish you knew Sanskrit. This word itself, nischala, just makes me nischala. Nischala means when you become nirmoha, when you're delusion free, what has happened? Your vasanas, your compulsive cravings, thoughts, questions, desires, things must go this way. My father should live, for 500 years, this should happen, that should, you just become quiet. This is my reality and I accept it. It's beautiful. Then you are one, nischala, achala. You become just still with the immutable, with the unchanging reality, because the intelligence I was mentioning in some classroom that is running billions of galaxies with every detail cannot be so stupid as to give you your current reality. And this is the reality, and let me see it as it is. Some dark, some patchy, some light, some gray, some orange, this is it. and all the vasanas calm down to control it. Purushartha will remain. This is what I need, I do this job, I do this. All this restlessness will calm down. Nischala. Then the person becomes very inward while being fully outward. Okay, because by the way, I will explain to you that I will just explain. And the last word, Nischala, will lead to Jivan Mukti. What is that? Jivana means life, Mukti means free. Most of us feel so, what happened to you? If somebody says, what happened to your frowning? Life. That's the answer we give. Life is such a problem. We talk like that, you know. So how nice. It says it leads to freedom from life, from your problem called life. Now you become one with reality and you enjoy freedom to enjoy this life. Now you can go anywhere, do anything. You can, now I can go back even to those two friends who were full of limitations and obstacles and obstructions and sorrow. And I might, help them out there, because now you can go anywhere and you are free. Nobody can get you because you have gone through these steps. So this is the way we slowly, satsang increases. Sattva helps us see what is worth detaching from and what is worth keeping. It cleans up, it does some housekeeping, allows us to do some housekeeping because it turns on the lights. When the lights are turned on, some of our false beliefs and delusory realities and old patterns, software that we keep running for 30 years, suddenly they collapse. Like they didn't have, and they were ghosts in our mind. They were phantoms. They were phantom sorrow, phantom revenge, phantom ego, phantom wounds. And then we come to Nischala Tattvam, we become one with whatever is, we become comfortable and then we become free. So, I just wanted to share this shloka with you. It's not, directly part of karma yoga as such, but I still wanted to share that because I feel that, it just shows you how sattva guna slowly becomes, which we get from satsang. We slowly realize how important is this journey. And when you are free, then you go back and be an architect, or you go back, you're in the same job, but you're free. Today I was talking to some students and one student said that, I don't remember what kind of work she does, but apparently it has a lot of spreadsheets and things. And the person went through such a difficult period from a workload wise. And the rest of the team members said, you are so relaxed, you are smiling, you are, and she said she doesn't feel the stress now because she has been a student for some time, and so this is not new to her karma yoga, and she has been applying the principles. So what felt like such a heavy thing for her, because of sattva, she's not making it bigger than it is. Okay, and because of sattva, she's able to cultivate the inner strength and new attitudes to deal with it. And in fact, the student said, I was so proud of her when she said, I was also able to comfort others and become like a source of inspiration for others. So they are now coming to me for I don't know how to talk this way, but I can just say something to them that supports them. So that's a good way that we'll be in that same job, but we will be able to be, free. But what did we do? We did yoga, yoga kshema. We were just so busy acquiring kshema. We were so busy preserving and maintaining, and we lost all our energy in it. Then old age came to us. Then we became embittered, and all that we had done to acquire our old age security, our funds start running out. The ill health is there. The daughter-in-law doesn't listen to us. The son doesn't visit. We are in an old people home with the window that looks in the parking lot, not in the garden. We have this problem, that problem. And the sorriest part is that we have no inner attitudes to be okay even in the window that looks at the parking lot, because our happiness lay inside us all along. So, there can be no amount of security that we can find only through Artha Kama. We need it. But we also, with Dharma Moksha, we can cultivate security within us. So this is the whole point of the beginnings of karma yoga. And Atmavan Bhav is really being alert in your life that, what attitudes am I bringing to my daily life to be not get carried away by my circumstances, those pairs of opposites. Because that's just leading a very, scripted life. That's just responding in a knee-jerk manner to, I don't want this coming my way. Here is a chance to lead a very intentional life. And, if this still feels very high philosophy, remember we have a few more shlokas and then a whole chapter, really bring it down to the nitty gritty, places of it. So in essence, don't get carried away by anything you are doing. And that is known as Atmaman, remain mindful. So I'm going to stop here because then I would like to talk to you. But I did want to mention something, that there are two paths in the Vedas, and I've mentioned this countless times in other teachings, but one is called pravritti and one is called nivritti. Pravritti means that which keeps us in the world, P-R-A-V-R-I-T-T-I, pravritti. And nivritti means N-I, V-R-I-T-T-I. Vritti means thought. Pravritti are thoughts which keep us engaged in the world and society and make us act. And nivritti is where we reduce our actions and become more introverted from the society, to the point that we may even remove ourselves from society. Interestingly, Veda as a spiritual tradition doesn't just impose upon us that you must only be introverted and you must remove yourself from the world. Because if you do it too soon, then you are circumventing your own spiritual growth. In fact, there is a time to be outward, and after you have been outward and you have practiced stabilizing your sattva by being outward, then you go inwards. So in case you are thinking of spiritually bypassing karma yoga, and just because sadhana chatushtayam sounds exotic while I'm teaching it, you're planning to kind of locate yourself there, you might not want to do that. And I'll tell you why. It's very brilliant tradition actually. And again I marvel at the psychological finesse of this tradition and this teaching. So it says that, you want to be just like a child. A child wants to, even as youth, we all want to be out in the world for some time. And then when we get mature, we want to be a bit more introverted. But if we were not out in the world, and if we had not engaged with the world, and if we had not rubbed our egos with the world, and if we had not seen if we get carried away by the world and its opposites and the attractive voices which are seducing us, and could we cultivate sattva and a more of an observer consciousness and a creative thinking, discerning consciousness through all of that. If we don't live in the world long enough, we would really not stabilize sattva in us. And then once the sattva is stabilized, it stabilizes to such a point. And because sattva is the guna in the mind that is actually a representation of what? Of your true Atman, of your soul, of your consciousness. So when the sattva has stabilized to a certain degree, and when the sattva has enhanced to a certain degree, it starts revealing to you. It starts self-revealing to you your own hidden, invisible, true, all-powerful, all-blissful divine self. And you start getting some indications that while I am quite comfortable outside due to karma yoga, and I am pretty much on cruise control now, and the signs of that would be that you're not stressed, and things may be better, things may not be that better due to prarabdha karma of you or community, but you are okay. And you are on cruise control. But then when your sattva has stabilized, you shall start feeling a desire to go more inwards. It happens on its own, then you don't have to force it to happen. Because sattva does that. It leads to the next level. Sattva becomes the conduit between karma yoga. In karma yoga, you cultivate it. And then in jnana yoga, you utilize it to listen, and that memory keeps getting activated. And when that whole self becomes more and more revealed, initially it may be revealed one drop, or 0.1% of a drop, and it's enough for you to want to say, I'm feeling an inward pull. And then you go inwards, and then things like your thoughts will reduce, your things that I'm teaching in sadhana to teach them around, if I gave an example of, how much money do you want to earn, and you must reduce this or do that. So I'm giving some very clear, reduction criteria. But if you are still in the karma yoga state, then that is not for you. So in fact, karma yoga says, go ahead, earn what you need to earn, be in the world, engage, meet with people, set up a household. So the Veda actually is very interesting. The Veda first created an ashram called the Brahmacharya ashram, which was an ashram to be outward. And and you may probably be in the Brahmacharya ashram, but you may not be outward because you're afraid. And so you think you're ready for the other ashram. And then my teaching to you is, go back into the Grahastha ashrama, or go back in the society with new karma yoga tools. Go back to your relatives, go back to your job, go back to your entrepreneurship, go back to whatever you're doing with sattva in your mind and new attitudes. And then when that consciousness has ripened, you yourself will then want to be ready for sattva. So in pravritti, we go outwards. In nivritti, we come inwards. In pravritti, we act, we do actions. We are not told to be inactive. This will come later. Some people say, oh, I have failed so many times. I've had such difficult relationships, so I won't have a relationship. I've had so many failures with business, so I won't start a business. Probably I'm ready for spirituality. Then this is a good thought to think, are you? Are you? Or did you just get afraid? Did you just get cautious? And caution doesn't mean that you are ready for self-realization. Excessive caution just means that you are ready to learn new attitudes so that you can have more immunity when you go out in the world. And even if things are crashing around you, you don't crash. Even if relationships are difficult, you remain somewhat okay in it and keep milking that situation to strengthen your sattva. So this was really important, and this is a point coming up. And, and it's very interesting that it would have been very cool if the Gita had started with like karma yoga. All our teachings began with karma yoga, then into jnana yoga. But always teachings begin with jnana yoga. They feel very tempting to us. But then every teacher from the sampradaya will give you a reality check. Are you really ready for jnana yoga? Or are you actually just getting ready for karma yoga? And if you're suffering and feeling a sense of inadequacy in relationships or in profession or in, rubbing your ego with society, you can keep the aspiration for, Atma Bodha, self-realization, but you might be now really going to benefit from Karma Yoga. Because Karma Yoga doesn't ask you to remain outside the world, in your own inner world, but in fact it says, go out there, stay in the world, even take on a relationship or two if you feel like it. You may marry, you may not. And in fact, that is why when Baba had very young students who were, probably bachelors, and they wanted to study, Tattva Bodh with him, or, other Jnana, because Baba had a curriculum. Baba would, then give them Karma Yoga by giving them, Seva projects. So he would say, okay, 10 of you are going to dig a well in, that village, and you have to negotiate with the elders on which land it will be, because whosever land the well will be dug would become prosperous. So everybody wants that. And so there should not be no fight in the community, where are Baba's students going to put in their seva? And, and how do you negotiate with the village? How do you develop things? And how do you have peer management with each other? So he kind of made them a family. and like a little peer group, and then they all rub their egos and try to work from sattva. So the people who are already in the world, they have jobs or they have partners or they have relatives. Those people, they are really lucky because their field is right out there to practice the teachings that are going to be unfolding slowly over the next several weeks. Whereas those of them, because there were many young boys who came, and these were the students who just came and lived on the outskirts of our house, and they were dedicated, um, probably into, just it was not our job to think when they'll get married or not. They were just 17, 21, 19, but they needed karma yoga, and all they had was just themselves. And so they came and they had no family, so they would study with Baba and then they would go and sit quietly by the temple. Well, how do we know that they get to practice sattva and the attitudes? So then Baba would, selectively pick up the students, mix and match them, and make them then have a little family to practice karma yoga. And it was really beautiful because then that strengthened them to be in Jnana Yoga, which is the ultimate goal. Because once we remember who we are, a teaching is coming up which says that if all the joy and happiness in the world is like a pond of joy and happiness, then when you achieve your moksha, it is like an infinite lake of happiness that nothing ends. So every possible happiness, material happiness, social happiness, spiritual happiness, comes to you the closer and closer you come to yourself. You may just not crave it. You might not crave anymore for the big, beautiful, what a BMW maybe, because it doesn't cross your mind. But whatever happiness, say the happiness of owning a BMW gave you 60 units of happiness, and the happiness of owning a Prius gave you 30 units of happiness, then the happiness of moksha gives you 60 times infinity happiness. If it's happiness you want, then happiness is what you get. You get peace, you get happiness. So we want that ultimate goal of the self, but sattva is so important. But we are humans, and our ego is confused and the world is confusing us. So hence we are learning karma yoga, and we are developing a vyavasatmika, a very clear thinking faculty, and we are developing all new attitudes, all new principles that I could not go to. I had planned to teach you all the way to shloka 50, your teacher, and she just made it to, wow. Well, that's what it is. We are on 45. All right, my dears, I will stop here. I'm happy to take on any questions or any comments or any insights you had around the latest teaching on pravritti nivritti. I kind of taught it to you so early on so that you know that there is a very important role of being in the society and being, active, because this is karma. So being without karma, sitting on the periphery of the society and saying, no, I am ready to realize, maybe premature. And we may want to be in the world. Whatever it brings on, all its opposites, it's good. It's a field for us. You might want to raise your hand or whatever, electronic hand, if you have a question. Chandra, you have a question? Okay, no. Are you excited about studying karma yoga? Janya, you want to tell me why?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that I want to share is that I in the last couple weeks, I've been really feeling such understanding, such a deep understanding for the importance of the Gurukul method of education and the time that it takes and the importance of that time, the 12 years minimum time sitting with the teacher. I mean, being with you just for the last 6.5 years, I'm just now really coming to understand some of these concepts, and they're really integrating for me. So I just have a tremendous amount of gratitude for you and our sampradaya and this unbroken tradition. And patience is the key. Why I'm excited about karma yoga personally is because I'm such a good doer. And even over these years, I thought that I understood karma yoga as doing with gladness and joy, and that I'm supporting somebody else. What I'm realizing is it was still very transactional. Even though I would feel warm in my heart, I didn't fully see myself as the other self, as that there was no other self, there was one self. And I'm realizing how much more pathway I have to walk to really understand and go on the Jnana Yoga path. So I'm very, very excited to continue to grow into that.
Beautiful. And you reminded me of something, Janya, that, as human beings, we have extroverted tendencies, most of us. And that's how we are built. The mind looks outwards, the senses look outwards. So karma yoga is really a way to use that inbuilt tendency within us to then look outwards, but then have new attitudes to think and act. And 6.5 years is, for all of you, it's not 12 years in Gurukul, it's 24 years because you people are studying only part-time. So, but don't think years, just be grateful for what you get. And recently in my sadhana Chatushtayam class, I used a simile of a string of lights, but certain bulbs are fused in it. Don't miss any of the teachings if you can, otherwise the bulbs will be fused, So I'm not talking to you, Jenny, I'm talking to all of you, that if you miss a class, try to catch the class right away before the next class happens, because sequential layering in the Gita is very important in a textual study. When I teach on the other Thursdays, depending on where your relationships are, it's up to you, but here, if you really want, this is the real deal. If you want to be sorrow free, if you want this scripture's light to turn on your lights, you want to be there when the teacher is shining that light. And if by any chance you miss the class, you want to make up for it. That's what I would say. That will expedite it, especially because you people do not have the good fortune of daily study. Ideally, Gita should be studied early in the morning every day. Rest of the day goes blessed. Imagine if you had half hour or 40 minutes of study, one shloka, half shloka, won't it be so wonderful? Don't you agree? But since you don't have that, you stay motivated. That is what I would say to you. And make sure you don't have any bulb fuse, Okay. And then Nidhi, you wanted to say something?
Actually, Acharya Shunya, thank you so much. Janya already mentioned that she was feeling this gratitude. I felt immense gratitude after today's class. And thank you so much. I mean, I'm feeling already so happy that I'm a Sadasya now. And you were talking about moksha moments today. I had 2 moksha moments listening to you today, 2 very blissful moments. And I think this is the magic of Sanskrit and the way you speak in Sanskrit. 2 words actually gave me those blissful moments, which is, one was when you were describing Sakshi Bhav, the observer within us. the way you were describing it, it fills your consciousness with so much peace and stillness. And I felt that before, tiny glimpses of that, but obviously repetition is important. And I think that is what bridges the gap between, being a karmi and obviously a karmi yogi, I would say. And the second blissful moment was when you talked about, thank you so much for teaching us the shloka by Shankaracharya. Thank you so much. That was an additional gem.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Because, and when the way you said the word Nishchala, it was beautiful. Thank you so much. It was music to my ears.
Yeah. God bless you, my child. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I
Thank you.
understand that when you are listening to me, two people are listening. Very good punyam for the mother to listen when she's expecting. So that is good thing. So welcome to your family. And I am thinking of teaching all of you the Bhaj Govindam at some point. It's one of my
That
favorite.
would be wonderful.
Yeah. Except that it is time to be karma yogi, so I don't want to teach all of it too quickly.
Right.
God.
But we get very hungry when we are with you.
Yeah. God bless you. Okay. Anyone else?
I believe Arjuna had a question.
Here in a minute. I just want to say how much gratitude I have, echoing what's been said. But I also want to say that two things. One is that there's an expression, the directions weren't in the box, and these are like this is the directions for living. This is the manual for living, and it's so just the subtlety of it and the simplicity and the complexity at the same time are very inspiring and very settling. I used to feel like it was too complicated. Now I'm feeling like I just want more. I just want it's just in a good way. In a way of like there's so much depth. The other thing I want to say is that I had a real moksha moment before, because when I was a child, my whole family would gather every Saturday at my grandfather's house, and they would always talk about the person who wasn't there, and they would talk in very negative terms about the person. And I remember as a very little boy, I would sit there and say, but she's really sweet and she's really nice. Like I would say something that was counterbalancing all this negativity. And at first it was like, oh, he's so cute and what a sweet little boy. And then as I got a little older, I kept doing it. It was like, oh, he's so smart. And then it was like, can he go outside and play with his cousins? Right? And what came to me as the moksha moment is that I learned, and this is not like good learning, but I learned to hide my light. I learned to hide the light. And that really was the source, I think, for years of being so depressed and cut off. And just that I felt I had to hide the light. The light is there. When you're talking about in the first shloka about the golden, the gold, the shiny gold, that shiny gold is inside of us. That's who we are. And when we just experience that, it doesn't, it's boundless. It's not bound. And I think I just became so bound up at such an early age to go, just locked inside. And I just feel like, oh, I don't need to do that anymore. And that's so liberating to just speak, to be. If people don't like it, they don't like it. If they get upset, they get upset. I'm not doing it to make anybody upset. I'm not, you know what I'm saying. So it's just all very liberating.
The entire Gita, Arjuna, is full of moksha moments for us.
Sure.
It gives us a permission to really live a life from inner freedom, inner
Right.
patience,
Yeah.
and really a noble life too.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and so I totally hear you, my child, and
Yeah.
I kind of like it that the Lord kind of comes down to a worldly level and says, yep, you're going to meet all those sleepwalkers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that
now we know that.
well, then the other phrase that came to me as you were speaking is to be in the world but not of it. To be in the world. We are in the world, and not of it. Not kind of that glued stuck of the world. But it's the duality is in a way the reality of oneness is the only way I can think about it. Is that
and because we are in the world but we are not of it, so we were told that from Shloka 12 to 25.
right?
Now we are being told, so don't get spooked by it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how it's working.
Yeah, right,
Let
exactly.
me give you a couple of,
Yeah,
tips.
yeah.
That's what karma yoga is about.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful, and not get spooked by it, because it's like then it becomes a dance of a certain kind, or it becomes just this flowing movement rather than get like I have to, be worried and just be open to the what's here, what's coming, what's here, and trust. There's so much trust. Then I feel so much trust, trust in the Shastra, trust in you, trust in God, trust in the inner self, just trust that I can let go. I can swim. I can be in the world in a different way.
If all of you can just practice trust in Ishvara,
Yeah.
you don't even have to repeat your trust in me or scripture.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just one trust that
Yeah.
Ishvara is there.
Yeah.
And because of him, then I am going to get well handled.
Yeah.
And that is why my teacher has shown up. That is why scripture has shown up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That,
thank you. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
And
Thank
Janya,
you.
I'm reading your comment. I totally agree that there is a prevalent attitude for, it being a quick fix. So actually, I'm actually really proud of you for saying it out there that I've been 6.5 years for you, but I'm only just starting to melt. So if you're like those California poppies that are kind of right now, they have a coup going on in my garden and they're trying to take over, then they just have like these tiny little seeds that quickly grow and then they get huge, and they don't take time to grow. They're there and then they are gone, when the weather changes. But if you're going to be a giant oak, then it's going to take some time for you to be in the soil, and even for your outer kernel to fall apart. And then, you'll go deep, deep, deep down, and you'll need the help of, a lot of factors for you to go deep enough. Because I was reading that millions of oak seeds are there, but how many come out? And it takes, and time is of essence. So to become that abiding tree, which we want to, because we want this lifetime to turn around. We've done all the karmi ways of being happy. Now we want karma yoga and jnana yoga, right? Which is our speciality. We used to chant, no, karma yoga se jnana yoga se cha. We believe in these two teachings in our sampradaya. So we have to go deep and to say, at 6.5 years, I came out of that dark soil and I'm looking at the world and I'm this happy sapling with 2 new leaves. Way to go. Aparna, you should send that cartoon you sent me. You should send it to everyone today. You remember that one? Where there was a seed that went inside, and remember that one? Yeah. So that's really great if 6.5 years later you're a sapling. And that doesn't mean that if Nidhi is joining today, only 6.5 years later she'll be a sapling. That's not the point. The point is, what are you dealing with? Where are you at? And how deep do you want to go? And, and Janya may have felt 2 years into it, I have arrived. 6 years later, she feels arrived. Guess what? Your teacher today feels, I've arrived. So it's like this knowledge is like an ocean, and one drop of it makes you happy. That's why time is not a criteria. Every time you get some clarity, celebrate, because your soul has been gifted something by Ishvara. And Shastra and Sampradaya and Guru, they all become sources of that one Ishvara, showing his extreme kindness to you, saying, I love you and I don't want you to suffer. That is what Ishvara is saying to you, period. And every person who has ever given you suffering was really only playing a role and is still playing a role in your life so that you can strengthen your karma yoga. And I have taught it before, but now we are really, like I said, going deep into the teachings. So you want to be, enjoying it. That's all I can say. Enjoy every moment of it. All right. So we shall end now. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace.